Oh. Okay, so we looked at production functions and costs. Now, in our lecture last time, we said a business person, in the example we had, is, for example, a farmer. Production functions guide that farmer how much output he can get from a certain combination of inputs. So a production function is a mathematical specification of the relationship between inputs and outputs. Then we talked about costs, that in order to produce what you want, those inputs that have been specified, you have to cost them. You must put some price to it. So the cost function is derived from your production function. And you remember, we also talked about that in the short run, some inputs are fixed, meaning some costs are fixed. So you have some which you can vary. So your output depends on what you can vary. So if you are not producing anything, you still have costs, those costs which are fixed, because of those inputs which are fixed. Whether you're producing anything or not, you still have costs because some of the inputs are fixed. So for example, you may have a tractor, you may have a building, which is fixed. You may have land, which is fixed. So whether you're producing, you're using your land or not, you have a fixed cost. Now, the output will depend on the variable cost. Now, the variable cost in that case, what we said was, for example, labor. The moment you add one more labor, you employ one laborer, you start producing from that piece of land, which is a fixed input. So the amount, you can increase the amount by increasing your employment of more laborers. By putting in more inputs, you will increase your output. So in that case, you can be able to analyze how your outputs are increasing based on your increase of inputs. Okay? So just in summary, if you remember, we had something like this. Fixed costs are like that. Variable costs, so these are costs, these are output. Okay? Your variable costs will increase as you increase your output. So your variable cost starts from the middle here, from here. So it will be like this. Okay? This will be your variable cost. Now, your total costs will be fixed costs plus variable costs. These are always there, even if you are not producing anything. They are there. Doesn't matter whether you're producing anything or not. But variable costs, they move with the output that you want. So if you say total cost will now be equal to fixed cost plus your variable costs. Now, this total cost will always be there, even if you are not producing, even if this is zero. If your variable costs are 0, it means you are not producing anything. So your total cost will just be equal to your fixed cost. Right? So those are some of the things that we are discussing. And then we also talked about that you initially have increasing returns to scale, meaning the more you initially, when you put in one person, your output will start increasing. You remember the example I gave. Okay? Now, there are other concepts that you need to know. These are marginal cost, marginal revenue. You remember we also had marginal product. Okay? Then we also had average variable cost or average total cost. Those concepts should be clear with you. Is anybody having problems with that? I'm just revising one more. We'll move on to another issue. What is the marginal product? Look at this. Marginal product is the output, extra output you get from increasing your variable costs, your variable inputs by 1. So you have 10 laborers. Now you want to have 11. You have added one more, right? So you had 10 laborers. You were producing maybe 30 bags. Now you add 1, so you have 11. And then you find yourself producing 33 bags. Okay? So by adding one more unit of input, you are realizing 3 more bags. So the marginal product is the addition of output that you realize by adding one more variable input. Okay? What about marginal cost? Marginal cost is when what is the cost? What is extra cost of producing one more unit of output? So, supposing 10 bags, just come in, please. Marginal cost will be, for example, if 10 bags is costing you 100,000 to produce. Okay? What about when you add one more bag? So these are quantities. This is cost. So 10 bags is costing you 100,000. And you want to produce one more bag. So you want to produce 11 because you have added one more bag. What will be the cost of producing one extra bag? Okay? Producing one extra bag will now cost you, let's say, 109. So your marginal cost is 9,000. Right? The cost of producing one more output, one more unit of output. Whereas marginal product was what you produce by adding one more unit of input. Are these concepts clear? Okay. Marginal product is if you are having 10 people, what are you producing? How much are you producing? What if you add one more person to have 11 people? What do you gain in terms of output? Okay? Output, products. If you add one more input, what do you get? Okay? So that's marginal product. You're talking about production side. So you are saying, I am producing like this when I have so many people. It can be a bag of fertilizer. It doesn't have to be people. I'm just giving an example. What if you add one more bag of fertilizer? How much do you gain in output? You were applying 3 bags, now you want to apply 4. Okay? What do you get? What's the increase? Okay? So you're talking of inputs into outputs. Marginal product will be how much you gain in terms of output when you increase your variable cost by 1. Your marginal input by 1, sorry. Now, marginal cost is that one extra output that you want. You are not happy that you are producing 10 bags. You want 11. So this extra output, how much will it cost you? So that's marginal cost. Are we together? Maybe it's good that I try to revise this. Okay? Now, what about marginal revenue? What is revenue? How do you find revenue? How do you calculate revenue? Revenue in this topic of production, revenue will be equal to quantity times price, right? 10 bags times the price of a bag will give you how much money you will make. That will be your revenue. If you are a farmer, your total revenue will be how many bags of soya you made and at what price you sold. So if you had 100 bags times the price, you'll get your total revenue, right? Isn't it? Please say yes. Yes. Yeah. Because you are just quiet as if I'm talking alone. Okay? So it's the quantity, Q is quantity, P is price. So that's how you get your revenue. And how do you calculate your profit? revenue minus cost, right? So your total revenue minus your total cost, this one will be equal to profit. Simple, right? And you know what your total costs are. Your total costs are fixed costs plus your variable costs. So that's the formula of profit. You already know that. I mean, everybody knows that the profit is what you get with your selling my expenses, right? Yeah. Okay. So now, when marginal revenue is the revenue you get by selling one more output. How does your revenue change when you sell one more bag? In this case, we said soya. So if you were selling 100 bags, you have your total revenue will be this quantity plus this. Now, if you say this was 100 and this was 10, you have 1,000. Now, you want 101. One extra bag. How much will you get? So let's say 101 gives you 1,009. Then, for you to calculate your marginal revenue, you subtract. So this extra bag has given you 9,000, for example. Just as an example. Now, think very, very carefully. What are we driving at? We are saying one extra. How much revenue do you get by selling one extra output, unit of output? So in this case, bags. How much will you get? What will be the addition in revenue by increasing your sales by one more unit, by one more out bag? Your marginal revenue, when you add one more, I mean, it should ring in your head that this has been related to the price, right? Yeah. If you are selling one more bag and you call that marginal revenue, the extra revenue by selling the extra bag, it's just the price times that bag, right? Yes. Yeah. That's what you're beginning. Now, remember, when we are talking about averages, now I want you to link the relationship between averages, prices, and this concept of marginal. Because when you have your bags, you don't sell, let's say you have 100 bags, you don't sell your bag, bag number 1 is different price from bag number 2. If you were marking your bags in terms of numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, if you are at home and you have 100 bags and then you try to mark them, you will not be saying bag number 15 is selling at 20,000, bag number 20 is selling at 9,000, bag number 35 is, that's not what we do. Do we do that? No. We just say, I have got 100 bags, I'm selling at so much each. Right? So, how is that related to the average price? If you had a situation where you were selling each bag at a different price, you would actually, at the end of the day, be able to calculate the average price, right? How do we do that? Our secondary school algebra or mathematics or arithmetic, how do we do that? If you had 100 bags of soil and each bag was selling at a different price, we would be able to find the average price, right? So one bag is selling at 12, another bag is selling at 19, another bag is selling at 8, until we have 100 of them, 100 bags. So what will we do? We will add all these things, right? And find a figure here. And that figure will divide by what? 100. We'll have an average price. Now, it means if you use this average price and tell people that I have got 100 bags, I am selling at this much, you will just use the average price, right? You will still get the same amount of money at the end of the day, right? So these things are very related. So the average, when you are talking about averages, and now you are talking about these things, they start talking to each other. Now, if you are in a perfect market, remember your assignment. If you are a perfect in your perfect market, you have no control on prices. So the price that is given to you is not trying to maximize your profit. Remember, this one is this one here. You are not trying to maximize your profit by increasing this using price. The price is given. So the only way you can play around with is on issues of cost. Because the price is given at the market. So the only way you can make more profit for your business is to make sure you are the least cost producer. You minimize your average costs, your average variable cost or your average total cost. But if you are if you are in a monopolistic situation, you can. So the way you do that is by making sure that your marginal revenue is equal to your marginal cost. When you sell at that rate, you are maximizing profit. What is marginal revenue? The money you get by selling one more output. Okay? What is your marginal cost? The cost that you incur by increasing your out by one item. So which is, what are you talking about here? Are these things not the same? Are they not reflecting in your mind the same issues? How much you get from selling one extra output? And how much does it cost to produce one extra output? Come again. There should be a relationship there. How much do you get by selling one more output? How much does it cost by producing one more output? Are we together? So that's how these concepts are related. And there are mathematical things that we use to prove that you will you maximize profit by equating marginal cost to marginal revenue. Now, today we wanted to talk about what affects your response to prices. If prices are good, how do you increase? Or what affects you? How do you respond in terms of your decisions to produce more? So if a price goes up, remember, in a perfect market situation, I said you don't control P, and yet you want to maximize your revenue. Everybody in business wants to make more money, right? Yeah. And remember what we said, a business unit or an individual, they always want more than less. And we are always a rational human being, meaning we always choose the best options available. So now, if you're in business, you make sure that you always want to make sure that you generate as much revenue as you can. And this is how you define what revenue is all about. But the problem is you can't control P. Now, supposing P is going up or going down, you as a producer, how do you respond? It could also be you as a buyer. You remember, we talked about the law of demand. Based on price, everything else constant. The law of supply also is the same thing. Supplier is this guy who is producing. And you remember, I always want to bring you back because I want you to make sure that these things are not in a vacuum. It's something that you have learned already. Remember, we had our market like that. We said if everything else is constant, this is how suppliers behave. When prices go up, they supply more. That's why this thing is like this. When prices go up, they supply more. So if prices here, this is what you supply. But if price goes up to there, this is what you will supply. You always have to draw your lines like that to meet the line that you want to discuss. So here we are trying to discuss the supply line. Okay? So if the price is here, you touch the supply line, you move from that price to touch the supply line, and then you go down to find the quantity. Now, if the price goes up, you are starting from here, you go there and find the supply curve and go down. And now you can see that when the prices go up, the quantity supplied has increased. So from maybe from 10 to 20, just as an example. That's why this line is like this. Now, this supply, when we say supply, these are producers, suppliers. These are manufacturers, for example. And so on and so on. They supply, they produce. So the farmer is a supplier, is producing out to the market. Now, how do they respond? Is it always true that when prices go up, they will immediately go and supply more? How do they respond? So when we say how do they respond, that response, how do they respond? That response is called elasticity. You know, it's like if you have a rubber band, how does a rubber band respond when you pull? Huh? Hey, so some rubber bands, when you pull pangono amatanuka. Ena, you really have to exert a lot of pressure for them to be elastic. So elasticity is how do you responsiveness? How do you respond to? Are you elastic, or ndio wango nguti nganga, or you don't? Huh? Yeah. So this thing about elasticity of supply, for example, or elasticity of demand is, we are talking in terms of prices. When a price changes, how does the supplier behave? Do you, for example, the price has changed from 10 kwacha to 20 kwacha, and you are producing mandas. Do you immediately move from kwa mandazi timati kupika? Are we cooking or frying? What is it? Do you fry mandazi or you cook mandazi? Fry. I don't know. I think. Anyway, let's say you producing mandazi, maybe, because maybe frying, some people are saying it's not frying, it's not baking, it's not cooking, but let's say you are producing. The price goes up by 10%. So you are now encouraged, oh, the price has gone up by 10%, I can go and make more money. Let me produce more. Because that's how human nature is. You will say, oh, the price has gone up by 10%. Let me make money now. I produce more. Is it always like that? Okay, so elasticity is about that. So today we will talk about elasticity. We are moving from producing to now how do you respond to prices? We could do this even when we were talking about demand. I see. Mamba, you are tall enough. We are going to one tali. Tadina niko hicho. So my slide here is about elasticity of demand, but it can be elasticity of supply. Okay, so the topic in general is the issue of elasticity, responsiveness to price changes, for example. So the issue is responsiveness. Why is it not? Why is it not? So elasticity is an economic concept. It's a concept like what we were doing here. These concepts, marginal product, marginal cost, and blah, 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 blah. These concepts, you should be familiar with them. The concept of elasticity should be you should be familiar with them. Okay? Now, mathematically, these are elasticities are measuring the responses that you get when one variable changes. How does the other respond? Two variables are related to each other. There is a relationship between two variables. So when one variable changes, the other also changes. Now, elasticity is by how much do they change in the same proportion or differently? So if one changes by 10%, is the relationship in such a way that when one changes by 10%, the other will also change by 10%? Or is it that when one variable changes by 10%, the other one will change by 50%? What's the relationship? What is the responsiveness to the change of one variable? These variables are related. They have a connection so that when one changes, the other change. But how is what we study as elasticity, responsiveness. So you can have elasticity in demand, you can have elasticity in supply, you can have elasticity to do with income. So if an income of an individual changes, and this income of this individual is what he relies on to buy his groceries or her groceries at home. The amount of groceries that you are buying are dependent on your salary, for example, your income. So what about if your salary kunchito kwanu akweza by 20%? Will you increase your groceries by 20%? We don't know. So we can study that. But all we know is that your groceries the amount you buy are dependent on the income that you have, on your salary. So you spend 100,000 every month on your groceries because your salary maybe is only 500,000. So you only put 1/5 of your salary to groceries because there are so many other things that you have to take care of. Now, if your salary changes by, let's say, 100%, it moves from 500,000, it becomes 1 million. Will you change your groceries from 100,000 to 200,000? How do you respond to income increases when it comes to your buying pattern? So sometimes certain things, even though they are related, they don't matter. Doesn't change anything. Okay? So sometimes your income changes and you are not changing your budget for groceries. So you are, it means there's your income has changed from 500,000 to 1 million. and yet you want to be spending the same 100,000 on your groceries. You don't want to move. You are inelastic. Chiringati chiraba choti kukoka koma sichiuteka. Sichikuchita respond. You are inelastic. So mathematically, the elasticity is, for example, price elasticity or income elasticity. We are trying to study the change because something else has changed. Now, in case of where we are talking about price has changed, so it's a change in price. Yes, boss. Anahanga sindifuna mjoke mwa. Frank si uyangu nipitilize kupuzisa kapena. Okay. So the change in price is supposed to lead to change in quantity. So by your change, this is the way we write change. This is this is it a triangle? Whatever. This means change. So the change in price, if something is if something is responsive to the changes of one variable to the other. So in case of demand or supply, when there's a change in price, you expect a change in quantity, right? That's what you expect. So elasticity in this case will be measured, will be equal to change in quantity when you change price. So your formula is like this, because we are studying the change in quantities related to the change in price. So the percentage change in quantity over percentage change in price. This will be our measurement of responsiveness. So if the answer is 1 here, what does it mean? If the answer here is equal to 1, for example, if change in quantity divided by change in price is equal to 1, what do we mean? No. When you have a formula which is this divided by this is equal to 1, what does it mean? It means the top and down is the same number, right? Except if it is 0, 0, you can't have 1. But 2 divided by 2, 1. 3 divided by 3, 1. 10 divided by 10, 1. Huh? So it means the top and down is the same, which means that the percentage change in price will give you the same percentage change in quantity, right? That's why you have an answer which is equal to what? 1. Now, if change in quantity divided by change in price is equal to less than 1. What does it mean? It means that the down one is bigger, right? It means the change in price triggers a lower percentage change in quantity. So price has changed by 10%, quantity is only changing by 5%. So you have 5 over 10, which will be less than 1, right? It means the change in price is not giving you is actually giving you a less percentage change in quantity. So price has changed by 10%, but your quantity is only changing by 5%. So if you divide 5 over 10, it shows that it's not very you are pulling so hard, but the change is lower than your pull. Now, if change in quantity over change in price is equal to more than 1, what does it mean? It means a small change in price is giving you a big change in quantity. Very elastic. Panga kapuru pang'ono chiplastic chatanukiratu. This very small change in price is giving you a huge change in quantity. So this is very elastic. This is very elastic. This is inelastic. The big change in price is giving you very little. Okay? So you can also have extremes. You can have extremes. Okay? So this is very elastic when the answer is more than 1. It means it's very elastic. When the answer is less than 1, it means it's inelastic. This one is called unitary, 1 to 1. When the answer is 1, it means it's unitary. 10% change in price gives you 10% change in quantity. Unitary. So that one is called unitary elasticity. It's giving you the same. But you can also have extremes where there's no change at all, or there's infinite change. No change at all, or a change that you cannot measure, so huge. So those are the two extremes you can also get. So if we were talking about so let's look at so if this elasticity is actually measuring the slope. The slope gives you, of that curve, is actually telling you how responsiveness you get. Okay? So, if let's say we're talking about supply, this thing here, it depends how this slope is, so you are talking about change in prices. So price has gone up. Okay? So price has gone up. It means what you are looking at is this triangle here. This change is this one here, right? This, the same way. So you are saying this one here is this one here. So you are saying change in Q divided by change in price. So you are basically saying this one divided by, this one divided by this one. So basically you are dealing with this. Now, if this is equal to this, this is equal to this. I think in algebra, I don't know what you call that. Those, yeah, in math. Yeah, you guys who are very math, you can talk about what you get when this is equal to this. Okay? So that you can measure this slope here. Because that's what we are measuring. We are measuring this supply curve. So that's the responsiveness. The slope determines the response. The responses are determined by this slope. Now, we said that you can have extremes. You can have extreme. How do you get an extreme here? Where, for example, there is a change in price and nothing changes in quantity. The price is changing, but nothing happens with quantity. So what are we saying? We are saying that this slope is like what? So you take this slope, make it like this. You move this until it's vertical. You get me? You take this, move it like this until it becomes vertical. So we are moving it until it becomes like this. When you have a supply curve which is like that, there is completely no response to prices. Okay? Because at this price, we touch it there, quantity will be here. At that price, we are still touching it there, quantity is that. Is the same, regardless of the price. Understood? So there's completely inelastic. Perfectly inelastic. No response. Inelastic. Completely. Perfectly. This is perfectly price inelasticity of supply. You can do the same if you are talking about demand. If you want to find what is a completely no response, just move this thing until it is like this. Move it. Okay? So it becomes like this. D. This is completely inelastic demands curve. It's not responding to prices, because whatever prices, the quantity will still always be the same. You can have another extreme where don't dare to change the price, otherwise the quantity demanded will be so huge you will not measure. Don't dare to change the price, otherwise the quantity supplied will be immeasurable, so huge. So for you to do the other extreme, the lines should be horizontal. Okay? So if you had a demand curve like this, for this to be completely elastic, don't ever dare to change the price if you are in a business. You should move it until it is flat. So when it is like this, whether it's a demand curve or supply curve, it means it's only stuck to one price. Remember, when we did like that, they were stuck to quantity. Are we together? But when they are flat like this, they are stuck to one price. So if it is now look at the law of demand. In order to interpret this line, look at the law of demand. What does it say? Now you have just been doing an assignment, pompan. The law of demand, what does it say? When the price goes down, price quantity demanded goes up. So if you were here, if this was the price, then you reduce the price, quantity demanded will be so huge that no supplier will be able to meet. No supply, because the demand will be so huge just by reducing the price a little bit. And the law of demand says when you reduce the price, quantity demanded increases. Okay? So when you reduce a little bit, the demand will respond so massively. So the demand will be so huge. But if you increase the price, what does the law of demand say? You increase the price, quantity demanded decreases, right? When you have a perfect elastic demand like this one, what it tells you that if you dare to increase the price, the quantity demanded will just move to zero. Nobody will buy. So you have the reaction is so big. Wangokweza pangono basi anhosasia. It means the response is massive. Ungangosisa pangono and chimpurikiri chantu chofuna kugura zinthu zako. Cannot even manage to supply them. So this is perfectly elastic. The other one was perfectly inelastic when it is like this. This one, perfectly elastic. Infinitely elastic. Supply is the same thing. You have to use the laws in order to interpret. So what about supply? If we change this to SS, what does the law of supply say? When prices go up, quantity supplies also goes up. Okay? So the moment you increase your price, the supply will just be flooding the market. Be so huge because it's above. So in terms of supply, we said when prices go down, people are not happy. They will not supply. They reduce the supply. But when it is a perfectly elastic supply, it means the moment you reduce, nobody will produce. That's the implications. So far, any question? So